okay. It's just a lot of noise. I promise. It's okay. Oh, I'm so sorry that you're shaking. We're gonna give people some time while the music gets itself ready. You are purring like a little motorbike. Okay. Hello, y'all. We are about 5 minutes late because, well, the cat distribution, it happened. Again, this is like the 4th time I done had a cat follow me home and like just try to be here. So the cat distribution, it happened again. And so this is Pickles. We're just trying to see if Pickles needs anything. Honestly, Pickles seems fine, but we're gonna make sure they need anything. You want Pickles back?
It's Juju.
That's Juju? Okay, I'm sorry. My husband said that their name is Juju. Juju is purring like a motorbike, actually. I would like to hold Juju for a little bit.
Excuse me, you're allergic to cats.
I am allergic to cats, but I love it.
Give us the Juju.
No, I love Juju so much.
Give us the Juju.
Me being allergic to cats means nothing. Look,
Give us
look,
the
look,
Juju.
look. Me and Juju are both vibing.
She doesn't even want to be there.
First of all, me and Juju are vibing.
Juju.
No.
Come on.
Listen. Tell him to kiss your butt. You see how you...
Come on, Mama.
Here.
Come on. See?
Everybody asked you. And that's on having cat allergies and being determined to hold a kitten. I really love animals, y'all. Now, are my allergies gonna let me be great? Probably not. But that's fine. But welcome, y'all. This is the book club. We're gonna do this weekly again. If you follow me long enough, y'all know for a long time, every week, sometimes multiple times a week, we got together and we had reading sessions. This time is going to be Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola. Don't you judge my book, because my books are well loved. They're a little ratty, but they are well loved and well used, and I love them for that. This is an old read, but it's a worthy read. We're gonna skip through the forward. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Do you want to read the introduction? Are we doing the introduction or no? Because honestly, the introduction is beautiful, but it mostly goes over, I would say, Clarissa's feelings of the wild woman, how it comes about, what inspired her, and it is about 22 pages. So we can absolutely read through it. But again, it's 22 pages, so I'm gonna need y'all to let me know, do y'all want me to read the foreword or do y'all just want to skip on to the first chapter? I'm thinking, honestly, we should read the foreword. I think it would be beautiful, mainly because I feel like if people read, personal opinion, a little bit biased, but I feel like if people read books cover to cover, you would get a little bit more understanding, because I feel like sometimes we pick up a book and we skip straight to the first chapter and we miss out on like really beautiful words and thoughts of the author. I almost said of the artist, but they are artists, but we kind of miss very valuable thoughts of the author. So we're gonna I'm gonna be honest, if y'all let me, thank you, Elizabeth, this is my book. If y'all let me choose, we reading from page 1 to page 300. How many pages is this? I'm sorry, 510. Yeah, 510. If y'all let me choose, we're going to read from cover to cover. Pick one. Are we starting with page 1? Are we starting with the introduction? Or are we just going to skip to chapter 1? Either way, the book is good. But if y'all let me pick, back, we going to cover to cover in this book. So, I'm going to give y'all a couple seconds. I'm going to let y'all decide. Okay? Y'all got a couple seconds. Well, it's a good thing you're here, because we're actually going to do this entire book, not in one sitting, because honestly, that's going to be 500 pages. It would take me about a day and a half of reading to y'all nonstop, which I can do, but I have stuff to do tomorrow. So we are going to start with the introduction in chapter 1. And then next week, we're going to start with chapter 2. I've already got my notes in here. We might even hit up chapter 3, honestly, by our next session. We're going to see, though. I'm going to let y'all get y'all drinks. Oh yeah, I'm reading it. That's like my favorite thing to do. I don't know how long you've been following me, but when I first started out, every week we had a book that we picked from the library. As y'all know, I'm y'all hoodoo librarian cousin, and I'm a solid 1,000 books deep. So I got books on top of books on top of books that we can read, whether they are electronic, whether they are physical copies. If you got a book, I probably have read it, and if I have not read it, it's probably on my to be read list. I'm gonna give y'all the time to get y'all beverages in order, okay? Because Lord Jesus, why y'all ain't telling me my ponytail was sliding? Now, why y'all let y'all cousin get on here looking like this? Now, y'all know TikTok. The Celestine property. I believe I have. I'm going to have to look through my bookshelf. That might be one of the PDFs that I actually, because I used to give out, or I used to have a website listed for free PDFs. I think that was on the free PDF list, if I remember correctly. So we're going to see. I'm going to have to pull out the iPad, which is not charged, so I do apologize. I'll probably come back on the next book session, which will be next week on Wednesday. If not Wednesday, I'll make sure to announce it, but it'll be Wednesday through Thursday. Hi, Juju. Hey. I'm letting y'all get y'all beverages because that gives me an excuse to play with Juju. So the cat distribution system hit, and this cute cat followed me home, well, kitten, because they're only about 3 months old. And this is my husband, very much so lovingly named Juju. And Juju is amazing. Ooh, Juju loves my husband. But Juju, that is a candle, babes. You will burn up. I think you forget you're made of organic material. But you purring like a little motorbike. So enjoy looking at me cuddle Juju while y'all get y'all drinks and beverages in order. Y'all only got about a minute or so before we get started. Juju is an odd duck, but I like Juju a lot. Go get him. Go get him. Go get him.
Pancake.
Mm-hmm. Well, Juju, please. Please. Okay.
No, just
Juju,
hold
please.
it. Just hold it. Just hold it.
Cats are weird. Okay. Ah! Oh, you're good. Okay. Well, let's not, okay. Juju on the table, so. Juju has decided.
It's a boy.
I thought Juju was a girl. Okay, so we've now figured out that Juju is in fact a boy.
It's a boy.
Juju is a boy.
Get nuts, boy.
Oh, Juju is purring like a motorbike.
Get nuts there, boy.
Juju is rubbing all up against this book.
Come here. What you gonna do? What you gonna do,
Well,
dude?
first Juju's gonna lick the butt.
Come on. Come on down. You got it.
Hey, good job, dude.
Good job.
All right, y'all. So we're gonna start with the introduction because y'all gave me way too much time to deliberate on my own, and when you let me make decisions, I personally am gonna start from the beginning. So with that being said, we're starting out with the introduction, the actual page 1 of Women Who Run with the Wolves. First, we're starting out with Wildlife and the Wild. First, we're starting out with Singing Over the Bones. That's actually what the first initial chapter or introduction is named. Wildlife and the wild woman are both endangered species. Over time, we have seen the feminine instinctive nature looted, driven back, and overbuilt. For long periods, it has been mismanaged like the wildlife and the wild lands. For several thousands of years, as often as we turn our backs, it is relegated to the poorest land in the psyche. The spiritual lands of wild women have, throughout history, been plundered or burnt, dens bulldozed, and natural cycles forced into unnatural rhythms to please others. It is not by accident that the pristine wilderness of our planet disappears as the understanding of our inner world, as our inner wild nature fades. It is not so difficult to comprehend why old forests and old women are viewed as not very important resources. It is not such a mystery. It is not so coincidental. Ooh, y'all words. I apologize. It is not so coincidental that wolves and coyotes, bears and wildish women have similar reputations. They all share related instinctual archetypes, and as such, both are erroneously reputed and ingracious, wholly and inanely dangerous, and considered to be ravenous. My life and work As a Jungian psychologist, poet, cantadora, keeper of old stories has taught me the woman's flagging vitality can be restored by extensive psychic archaeological digs into the ruins of the female underworld. By these methods, we are able to recover the ways of the natural instinct of the psyche, and through its personification in the wild woman archetype, we are able to discern the ways and means of women's deepest natures. I apologize. I don't know why I decided to go into an ad. Boring. The modern woman is a blur of activity. She is pressed to be all things to all people. The old knowing is long overdue. The title of this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype, came from my study of wildlife biology, wolves in particular. The studies of the wolves, Canis lupus and Canis rufus, are like the history of women, regarding both their spiritness and their travails. Healthy wolves and healthy women share certain psychic characteristics: keen sensing, playful spirit, and a heightened capacity for devotion. Wolves and women are relational by nature, inquiring, possessed of great endurance and strength. They are deeply intuitive, intensely concerned with their young, their mates, and their pack. They are experienced in adapting to constantly changing circumstances. They are fiercely stalwart and very brave, yet both have been hounded, harassed, and falsely imputed to be devouring and devious, overly aggressive, of less value than those who are their detractors. They have been the targets of those who would clean up the wilds, as well as the wildish environs of the psyche, extincting the instinctual and leaving no trace of it behind. The predation of wolves and women by those who misunderstand them is strikingly similar. Hey, Abdul, talking about what's good. Anyway, so this is where the concept of the wild woman archetype first crystallized for me. In the study of wolves, I've studied other creatures as well, such as bears, elephant, and soul birds, butterflies. The characteristics of each species give abundant metaphoric hints into what is knowable about the feminine instinctual psyche. The wild nature passed through my spirit twice. Once by birth to a passionate Mexican-Spanish bloodline, and later, instinctual psyche. The wild nature passed through my spirit twice. Once by birth to a passionate Mexican-Spanish bloodline, and later through adoption by a family of fiery Hungarians. Let's all pause and talk about how insane culturally that had to be, but also how interesting, because I can only imagine, this is gonna sound so out of order, but imagine what the food tastes like. I know the food had to be good because that's two amazing cultures with two amazing cultural tastes. I would love to eat at their house. This would be one of those cases where for once in my life I would eat at someone I am not that familiar with home, because I know that the food had to be good. You don't have to make him be quiet. He's a kitty. Excuse me. I was raised up near the Michigan state line, surrounded by woodlands, orchards, and farmland near the Great Lakes. There, thunder and lightning were my main nutrition. Cornfields creaked and spoke aloud at night. Far up in the north, wolves came to the clearings in the moonlight, prancing and praying. We could all drink from the same streams without fear. It's okay to be running behind. Trust me. We were running like 5 minutes behind. Trust me. It's okay. No judgment here. You missed it. We introduced the new kitty. This is Juju. You'll see Juju in a second. But Juju is begging for food at the feet of my husband. Although I did not call her by her name then, my love for wild women began when I was a little child. I was an athlete rather than an athlete, and my only wish was to be an ecstatic wanderer rather than chairs and tables. I preferred the ground, the trees, and caves, for in those places I felt I could lean against the cheek of God. The river always called to be visited after dark. The fields needed to be walked in so that they could make their wrestle talk. Fires needed to be built in the forest at night, and stories needed to be told outside the hearing of grown-ups. I was lucky to be brought up in nature. There, lightning strikes taught me about sudden death and the evanescence of life. Mice litter showed that death was softened by new life. When I unearthed Indian beds, fossils from the loam, I understood that humans have been here a long, long time. I learned about the sacred art of self-decoration with monarch butterflies perched atop my head, lightning bugs as my night jewelry, and emerald green frogs as my bracelets. A wolf mother killed one of her mortally injured pups. This taught me hard compassion and the necessity of allowing death to come to the dying. The fuzzy caterpillars, which fell from their branches and crawled back up again, taught single-mindedness. Their tickle walking on my arm taught me how skin can come alive. Climbing to the tops of trees taught what sex could sometimes feel like. My own post-World War II generation grew up in a time when women were infantilized and treated as property. They were kept as fallow gardens, but thankfully there was always a wild seed which arrived in the wind. Though what they wrote was unauthorized, women blazed the way anyway. Though what they painted went unrecognized, it fed the soul anyway. Women had to beg for the instruments and the spaces needed for their arts, and if none were forthcoming, they made space in the trees, in the caves, the woods, and in closets. Dancing was barely tolerated, if at all, so they danced in the forest where no one could see them, or in the basement, or on the way out to empty the trash. Self-decoration caused suspicion. Joyful body or dress increased the danger of being harmed or sexually assaulted. The very clothes on one's shoulders could not be called one's own. It was a time when parents who abused their children were simply called stripped, when the spiritual lacerations of profoundly exploited women were referred to as nervous breakdowns, when girls and women were tightly girdled, tightly reined, and tightly muzzled, they were called nice. And those other females who managed to slip the collar for a moment or two of life were oftentimes branded as bad. So like many women before me, I lived my life as a disguised creatora, a creature. Like my kith and kin before me, I staggered in high heels, and I wore a dress and a hat to church, but my fabulous tail often fell below my hemline, and my ears twitched until my hat pitched, and at the very least, down over both of my eyes, and sometimes clear across the room. I've not forgotten the song of those dark years, Hombre de la Alma, the song of the starved soul, but neither have I forgotten the joyous canto hondo, the deep song, the words of which come back to us when we do the work of a soulful reclamation. Did you hear you?
Right there.
Oh, okay, there goes you. So far, how are we liking the intro? Honestly, this is why I wanted to start with the intro for y'all, only because I think as beautiful as the first chapter is, it immediately jumps into the story. I'm not gonna tell you what the story is because we're gonna hit that in like a few pages. But I love the way that she begins the introduction, because regardless of whether or not you are regardless of whether or not you are Mexican American, I have to look back because I couldn't remember where she was from, or you grew up Hungarian, or you grew up in Appalachia, or you grew up in Southern Louisiana like myself, pretty much every person knows what it's like to have to confine yourself to a space to fit in hopes that you will be allowed to exist without being judged. We all know what it's like to put on a mask to protect ourselves. But this book also talks about the importance of dropping that mask. So you don't have to be anyone else but yourself. You don't have to be or pretend to be anyone else. I don't have to try and make myself into the perfect pastor's daughter. I don't have to make myself into the perfect little Catholic school girl, or the girl that went to Catholic schools. That wasn't my job. I feel like this book, especially just in the introduction alone, really shows and puts a huge precedence on the importance of accepting who you are, regardless of how other people feel about it. Yes, Juju, come here. Come on. Come on. Yeah, you're doing all that yelling. Yes, yes, yes. We see you. We hear you. You're doing all that dang yelling for nothing. All that yelling. He's right there. He didn't leave. He didn't leave you at all.
I love you too.
Juju might end up staying. Am I allergic to cats? Absolutely. Is that going to stop me from holding this kitten? No. No, it's not. How are we feeling so far, y'all? We only 6 pages in. 6 pages in and we already striking some chords. That's, you know? telling y'all this book is worth it. This is just week 1. We only doing chapter 1 for tonight. So if in the event, y'all have until Wednesday of next week to get a physical copy so y'all can take y'all notes. Because I got notes down. I got questions. I got all kinds of, yes, I love you too. I have all kinds of stuff down. Oh, baby, I got work that I'm going to send y'all home with. I'm going to let y'all live for chapter 1, though. Juju said y'all might not be able to do that, actually. Juju might just convince me to already give y'all homework and we only doing chapter 1. Who knows? But I was going to let y'all live for chapter 1. No homework yet. But I was hoping that y'all can have y'all book by next week. If not, that's fine. I'm still going to give y'all homework to do. Either way. The homework doesn't even require the book. It's introspection. Yup. I love you too. Why would I let... You're already living. I feel like, personally, you know, I feel like we're living. And I feel like we can live just a little bit more if y'all would let me challenge y'all just a little bit. You know, I think Juju, what you think? What you think? He's making biscuits. Introspection homework, that I'm on board. Juju making biscuits right now. If y'all want some biscuits, put y'all orders in. Oh, well, he on break now. Ain't no, oh, 1 biscuit. We got 1 biscuit if you want it. Baby, you are purring like a motorbike. I appreciate it. You want to get Juju so I can finish with the intro? I don't want to put them down, but I have to. Well, actually, no, I can read one-handed. Let's see. Yeah, we can do this one-handed, actually. I think we can do that. So like many women before me and after me, I lived my life as a discarded creature, as a disguised creature. Oh, wait. There it is. I've forgotten the song. Okay. Juju might just be a distraction because I legit forgot where we were. Hold on, y'all. Like a trail through a forest which becomes more and more faint and finally seems to diminish to nothing. Traditional psychology theory, too, soon runs out of the creative, the gifted, the deep woman. Traditional psychology is often a spare or entirely silent about the deeper issues important to women. The archetypal, the intuitive, the sexual, the cyclical, the ages of women, a woman's way, a woman's knowing, her creative fire. This is what was driven by my work with the wild woman archetype for over 2 decades. A woman's issues of soul cannot be treated by carving into her a more acceptable form as defined by an unconscious culture. Nor can it be bent into a more intellectually acceptable shape by those who claim to be the sole bearers of consciousness. No, that is what has already caused millions of women who began as strong in natural powers to become outsiders in their own cultures. Instead, the goal must be the retrieval and the succor of women's beauteous and natural psychic forms. Fairy tales, myths, and stories provide understandings that sharpen our sight so that we can pick out and pick up the path left by the wildish nature. The instruction found in stories reassure us that our path has not run out, but still leads the woman deeper, and more deeply still into their own knowing. The tracks we are allowing are those of the wild and the innate instinctual self. I call her wild woman for those very words. Wild and woman. Create Lamar o tocar a la puerta. A fairy tale knock at the door of the deep female psychic. Lamar o tocarta a la puerta means literally to play upon the instrument of the name in order to open a door. It means using words that summon up the opening of a passageway. No matter by which culture a woman is influenced, she understands the words wild and woman intuitively. When women hear those words, an old memory is stirred and brought back to life. The memory is of our absolute, undeniable, and irrevocable kinship with the wild feminine, a relationship which may have become ghostly from neglect, buried by over-domestication, outlawed by the surrounding culture, or no longer understood anymore. We may have forgotten her names. We may not answer when she calls ours, but in our bones we know her. We yearn towards her. We know she belongs to us, and we know that we belong to her. It is into this fundamental, elemental, and essential relationship that we were born, and that our essence we are also derived from. The wild woman archetype sheaths the alpha matrilineal being. There are times when we experience her, even if only fleetingly, and it makes us mad with wanting to continue. For some women, this vitalizing taste of the wild comes during pregnancy, during nursing their young, during the miracle of change in oneself and one raises a child, during attending to a love relationship as one would attend to a beloved garden. A sense of her also comes through the vision, through sights of great beauty. I have felt her when I see what we call the woodlands, a Jesus God sunset. I have felt her move in me from seeing the fishermen come up from the lake at dusk with lanterns lit, and also from seeing my newborn baby's toes all lined up in a row like a row of sweet corn. We see her where we see her, which is everywhere. She comes to us through sound as well, through music that vibrates in our sternum, that excites my heart. It comes through a drum, through a whistle, through a call, through a cry. It comes through the written and the spoken word. Sometimes a word, a sentence, or a poem, a story is so resonant, it's so right, it causes us to remember, even at least for an instance, what substance we are really made from and where our true home is. I'm going to pause there because this just made me think. And this might be other people. But when was the time that you felt like you were a truly wild woman? Personally, for me, it happened during a protest. I think that was the first time that I truly felt what it was like to be a wild woman. It was a protest for Trayvon Martin. It was really small. It was in a park. And of course, here come the supremacists. And it's this park full of young black kids in Houston, Texas. Most of us don't know how to defend ourselves truly against these supremacists in person. So here we are, head to head, eye to eye with these people. And I think for me personally, it was looking face to face or looking eye to eye with a man, because I was a big girl. If y'all don't know, because I know some of y'all are in Houston, excuse that. My husband and Juju are having a moment. But when I was young, or if you live in Houston, because some of y'all have seen me, because some of y'all have stopped me in the street. If y'all have ever seen me in Houston, I'm a big old gal. I'm damn near 6 feet tall. I'm 5'10", 5'11" on my best day. I'm a big old girl. So here I am. My first true feeling of being a wild woman is staring into the eyes of a white supremacist and daring him to do something. Because what the fuck are you going to do? My first ever true experience of being a wild woman was protecting a bunch of other black children. And I know some people might think it's a rare feeling. It's an odd feeling, because I saw someone who just mentioned that you hadn't felt like that before. And that's okay. That is A-okay. We're not all going to feel it. We're not all going to feel it at the same time. We're not all going to feel it when we're young. Some of us might not feel it until we're older. Some of us might not feel it until later. But when you feel it, it's almost like something vibrates at the bottom of your feet. I could feel my pulse through the earth in my feet that day. And most people would associate that with fear. Most people would associate that with being scared. But honestly, I remember associating it with being mad as hell. Because how dare you? Memorializing a young black man, me being not much older than him. And here you are, trying to intimidate people, other young black kids that are mourning. Because literally any of us could have been Trayvon at the time. Very similar to what happened with Mr. Marcel Williams, may he rest in power. That rage that I felt, I realize now that I'm older, because I'm 28. I realize now that wasn't rage. It was outrage. But it was justice flowing through my veins. That's when I definitely remember when I truly clicked into being a wild woman. I was fortunate enough to have it happen earlier in life. But it's also because I had always been raised myself to have a deep sense of justice. Juju. No one's left you, Juju. Come on. Come on. Come on. I know. Juju's very upset, apparently. If he can't see my husband, he throws a quick tantrum. Or if he's not being held. You know, I found him outside today. And he's just decided he's an inside cat. Because, baby, he's having a blast. Don't you jump near that candle, little boy. You're going to hurt your dang self. If you want to get down, jump off the table then. But don't you come near that candle before you hurt yourself. Exactly. Don't be sweet now. Over here trying to do ridiculous things. You know better. Talking to him like he's a grown man. These transient tastes of the wild come during the mystique of inspiration. Ah, there it is. Oh, now it's gone. The longing for her comes when one happens to come across someone who has secured that wildish relationship. The longing comes when one realizes that one has given scant time to the mystic cookfire or to the dream time, too little time to one's own creative life, one's own life work, or one's true loves. Yet it is these fleeting tastes which come both through beauty as well as loss that cause us to become so bereft, so agitated. Juju gave y'all a kiss. Okay. Ah! You hooked me. Okay, fine. Go to your daddy then. Yeah. Oh, you just want to be on the table. You just want to be involved. He just wants to be involved. You're going to need to take an allergy pill later.
Reading with Juju.
Reading with Juju?
We're having to get him his own costume.
I don't know if he's going to let me put him in a costume. But, okay. Then we leap into the forest, or into the desert, or into the snow and run hard, our eyes scanning the ground, our hearing sharply tuned, searching under, searching over, searching for a clue, a remnant, a sign that she still lives, that we have not lost our chance. And when that sign that she still lives, that we have, and when we pick up her trail, it is typical woman to ride hard to catch up, to clear off the desk, clear off the relationship, clear out one's mind, turn to a new page, insist on a break the rules, stop the world, for we are not going on without her any longer. Juju knocked y'all all type of off kilter. Oh my God. Once women have lost her and then found her again, they will contend to keep her for good. Once they have regained her, they will fight and fight hard to keep her. For with her, their creative lives blossom, their relationships gain meaning and depth and health. Their cycles of sexuality, creativity, work, and play are reestablished, and they are no longer marks for the predations of others. They are entitled equally under the laws of nature to grow and to thrive. And now their end of the day fatigue comes from satisfying work and endeavors, not from being shut up in too small and of a mindset, a job, or a relationship. They know instinctively when things must die and when things must live. They know how to walk away and they know how to stay. We also have puppies, and that's Cleo, if y'all can hear her barking. She's very upset that she can't play with Juju, but Juju is a new kitty and I don't want to run the risk of either of them getting sick. So we do have to keep them separated right now, but she is very upset. She is protesting as we speak. Free the kid, free Cleo. When women reassert their relationship with the wildest nature, they are gifted with a permanent and internal watcher, a knower, a visionary, an oracle, an inspiration, an intuitive, a maker, a creator, an inventor, and a listener who guides, suggests, and urge vibrant light in the inner and outer worlds. When women are close to this nature, the fact of that relationship glows through them. The wild teacher, the wild woman, wild mentor supports their inner and outer lives no matter what. So, the word wild is not used in its modern pejorative sense, meaning out of control, but in its original sense, which means to live a natural life, one in which the creature, has innate integrity and healthy boundaries. These words, wild and woman, cause women to remember who they are and what they are about. They create a metaphor to describe the force with funds all females. They personify a force that women cannot live without. The wild woman archetype can be expressed in other terms, which are equally apt. You can call this powerful psychological nature the instinctive nature, but wild woman is the force that lies behind it. You can call it the natural psyche, you can call it innate, the basic nature of woman. You can call it the indigenous, the intrinsic nature of a woman. In poetry, it might even be called the other, or the seven oceans of the universe, or the far woods, or the friend. In various psychologies and from various perspectives, it would perhaps be called the id, the self, the medial nature. In biology, it will be called the typical or the fundamental nature. But because it is tacit, prescient, and visceral among cantadoras, it is called the wise or the knowing nature. It is sometimes called the woman who lives at the end of time, or the woman who lives on the edge of the world. And this creature is always a creature hag, or a death goddess, or a maiden in descent, or any number of other personifications. She is both friend and mother to all those who have lost their way, all those who need a learning, all those who have a riddle to solve, all those in the forest or in the desert, wandering and searching. In actuality, the psychoid unconscious, an ineffable layer of the psyche from which the phenomenon emanates, wild woman has no name, for she is so vast. But since this force engenders every important facet of womanliness, here on earth she is named many names, not only in order to peer into the myriad aspects of her nature, but also to hold on to her. Because in the beginning of retrieving our relationship with her, she can turn to smoke in an instant. By naming her, we create for her a territory of thought and feeling within us. Then she will come, and if valued, she will stay. So when it comes to this particular area, again, y'all, we only in the intro, okay? We're only in the intro. Imagine what the 400 plus pages of this book finna be like. We're just hitting the intro. How crazy is that? And we're already hitting this point where it's uncovering, I feel, a lot for people. If you are going to pass by this particular live, then by all means. But if you come and you decide to stay with myself and Juju, then you will know. You're going to start uncovering some stuff as you read. And again, page 8, y'all. Page 8. Oh, excuse me. Y'all know cat allergy and Juju's just laying all on me. So, in Spanish, I call her Ria Adabo Rio, the river beneath the river, La Mujer Grande, the great woman, Luz del Abismo, the light from the abyss, La Loba, the wolf woman, La Jereza, the bone woman. Now, I always knew about La Loba. I had never heard about the word La Jereza, the bone woman, which I thought was beautiful because then it led me on a little bit of a wormhole, and I started looking up different cultures and their histories of bone women, and I thought it was just beautiful. She is called in Hungarian or Erobin. She is of the woods of Rosmiak, the Wolverine. In Navajo, she is Nashe Azada, the spider woman who weaves the fate of humans and animals and plants and rocks. In Guatemala, among many other names, she is Hamana del Niebla, the mist being, the woman who has lived forever. In Japanese, she is Amaterasu Amikami, the Numina, who brings all light and all consciousness. In Tibet, she is called Dakini, the dancing force that produces clear seeing within women, and it goes on and on. The comprehension of this wild woman nature is not a religion, but a practice. It is a psychology in its truest sense. Push, psych, soul, ology, or logos, a knowing of the soul. Without her, women are without ears to hear her soul talk or to register the chiming of their own inner rhythms. Without her, a woman's inner eyes are closed by some shadowy hand, and large parts of their days are spent in a semi-paralyzing ennui, or else wishful thinking. Without her, women lose the sureness of their soul footing. Without her, they forget why they're here. They hold on when they would best hold out. Without her, they take too much or too little or nothing at all. Without her, they are silent when they are in fact on fire. She is their regulator. She is their soulful heart, the same as the human heart that regulates the physical body. It's okay. So we're going to do, funnily enough, I'm going to take this recording and I'll post it onto the Discord because I took an inner winner from posting consistently on that. And it'll give everybody who's missed it a chance to get a chance. Y'all, excuse me. Words are evading me today. Oh my God. But with that being said, I'm going to drop it in the Discord so that way everyone will be able to get a chance to watch and listen. This week, someone requested, not going to say who, but someone requested that I let y'all live. So I'm going to let y'all live, and we're going to do the introduction in the first chapter, and next week I will have something for y'all. You're more than welcome, baby. I'm going to let you go ahead and go. When we lose touch with the instinctive psyche, we live in a semi-destroyed state, and images and powers that are natural to the feminine are not allowed full development. When a woman is cut away from her basic source, she is sanitized, and her instincts and natural life cycles are lost, subsumed by culture or by the intellect or the ego, one's own or the one belonging to others. Wild women in the health of all women without her. Women's psychology makes no sense. This wild woman is the prototypical woman. No matter what culture, no matter what era, no matter what politic, she does not change. Her cycles change, her symbolic representations change, but in essence, she does not change. She is what she is, and she is whole. She canalizes through women if they are suppressed. She struggles upward if women are free. She is free. Fortunately, no matter how many times she is pushed down, she bounds up again. No matter how many times she is forbidden, quelled, cut back, diluted, tortured, touted as unsafe, dangerous, mad, and other derogations, she emanates upward in women, so that even the most quiet, even the most restrained woman keeps a secret place for her. Even the most repressed woman has a secret life, with secret thoughts and secret feelings which are lush and wild. That is natural. Even the most captured woman guards the place of the wilder self, for she knows intuitively that someday there will be a loophole, an departure, a chance that she will hightail it to escape. I believe that all women and men are born gifted. However, and truly, there has been little to describe the psychological lives and ways of a gifted woman, of a talented woman, or a creative woman. There is, on the other hand, much written about the weakness and foibles of humans in general and women in particular. But in this case of the wild woman archetype, in order to fathom her, apprehend her, utilize her offerings, we must be more interested in the thoughts, feelings, and endeavors that strengthen women and adequately count on the interior and cultural factors which weaken women. This is really important because when it comes to this particular type of journey, getting more in tune with your wild woman, you will oftentimes find that you will be rejected more often than not. Look at Juju just sleeping. You will be pushed aside more often than not. You will be told that your dreams are too lofty and that you're dreaming too big or you're asking for too much. This journey in particular is going to be a very true test of your will. Because at every chance, someone is going to try and knock you down. Sometimes it's intentional, and sometimes it's because they were taught at a really early age that they need to snuff out another person's light. Sometimes it's due for safety, and sometimes it's because they don't know any other way. Oh, don't show them that. It's nasty. But on your journey of the wild woman, you will learn very quickly what it is like to not constantly, but you will learn what it is like to be more in tune with that particular version of yourself. Excuse me. In general, when we understand the wildest nature as being in its own right, one which animates and informs a woman's deepest light, then we can begin to develop in ways never thought possible. A psychology which fails to address its innate spiritual being at the center of the feminine psychology fails women and fails their daughters and their daughters' daughters far into a future of matrilineal lines. So, in order to apply a good medicine to the hurt parts of the wildish psyche, in order to aerate a relationship to the archaeological type of the white woman, one has to name the disarrays of the psyche accurately. While in my clinical profession, we do not have a good diagnosis statistical manual for a goodly amount of differential diagnoses, as well as psychoanalytic parameters, which define psychopathy through organization or lack thereof it. In the objective psyche and the ego-self axis, there are yet another defining behavior and feelings from which a woman's frame of reference powerfully describe what is the matter. What are some of the feeling tone symptoms of a disrupted relationship with the wildest force of the psyche? To chronically feel, think, or act in any of the following ways is to have partially severed or lost entirety the relationship with the deep instinctual psyche. Using a woman's language exclusively, these are feeling extraordinarily dry, fatigued, frail, depressed, confused, gagged, muzzled, unaroused, feeling frightened, halted, or weak, without inspiration, without animation, without soulfulness, without meaning, shame-bearing, chronically fuming, volatile, stuck, uncreative, compressed, and crazed. Now, with that long of a list, I don't think a single one of us in this group and crazed. Now, with that long of a list, I don't think a single one of us in this group, those who have come and those who have gone, do not know what it's like to feel any of this. We have all felt what it is like to bear shame for something that wasn't your fault or something you were not meant to bear shame for. We all know what it's like to have to repress ourselves to be accepted by others or even by our family, by society, by a world that's told you that you're not acceptable until you're palatable for people who have no fucking taste. Feeling powerless, chronically doubtful, shaky, blocked, unable to follow through, giving one's creative life over to others. Life-sapping choices in mates, work, or friendships, suffering to live outside of one's own cycle, overprotective of self, inert, uncertain, faltering, inability to pace oneself or set limits and boundaries. And we sip. Not insistent on one's own. Hey, baby. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. TikTok is very upset with me because I keep talking about things that they don't really like, and that's okay because I'm gonna keep talking about it because it brings me joy. And in all honesty, I don't care how many people hear the message. As long as the message gets out, I don't care. So I am very glad to be back on the For You page. And I'm glad to see you again. I remember I used to see you in some of my lives. Not insistent on one's own tempo, to be self-conscious, to be away from one's gods or God, to be separated from one's ramification, drawn far into domesticity, intellectualism, work, or inertia. Because that is the safest place for one that has lost their instincts. To fear to venture by oneself or to reveal oneself. Fear to seek a mentor, a mother, a father. Fear to set out one's imperfect work before it is an opus. Fear to set out on a journey. Fear to care for another or for others. Fear one will run on, run out, run down. Cringing before authority. Loss of energy before creative projects, wincing, humiliation, angst, numbness, anxiety. Afraid to bite back when there is nothing else left to do. Afraid to try the new, fear to stand up to, afraid to speak up, speak against, sick stomach, butterflies, sour stomach. Cut in the middle, strangled, becoming conciliatory or nice too easily, or seeking revenge. Afraid to stop, afraid to act, repeatedly counting to 3 and not beginning, superiority complex, ambivalence, and yet otherwise fully capable, fully functioning. These severances are like a disease, not of an era or a century, but they have become an epidemic anywhere and anytime that a woman is captured, anytime the wild nature has become entrapped. Excuse the cough, y'all. I'm just getting over having the flu. A healthy woman is much like a wolf, robust, chock full, strong life force, life-giving, territorially aware, inventive, loyal, roving, yet separation from the wildest nature causes a woman's personality to become so meager, so thin, so ghostly, and so spectral. We are not meant to be puny with frail hair and an inability to leap up, an inability to chase, to birth, to create a life. When women's lives are in stasis or filled with ennui, remember that word from earlier, it is always time for the wildish woman to emerge. It is time for creating function of the psyche to flood the delta. How does a wild woman affect women? With her as an ally, as a leader, a model, a teacher, we see not through two eyes, but through the eyes of intuition, which is many-eyed. I thought this was really interesting, sidebar, because as y'all know, y'all hoodoo cousin, I was always called a four-eyed woman or a two-faced woman. My grandfather would always talk about me when he was talking with his family or with his friends. He would say, oh yeah, I had that little four-eyed girl with me. I always thought he meant glasses, or because I had terrible eyesight, because for a long time I didn't wear my glasses. I refused to. It wasn't until I got older that he finally kind of broke down and in apologizing to me for something. It wasn't until I got older that he finally kind of broke down and in apologizing to me for something that had happened long ago, he mentioned he always knew that I was a four-eyed woman. He said it always used to throw him off when I would look at him for too long because he knew that I was never looking with this. He knew that I was looking with this. And it made a lot of sense toward the end of his life when he came seeking forgiveness, because I understood finally that his aggression toward me, his anger toward me, his resentment toward me was because he had finally seen something that he had never experienced before. One thing I kind of learned growing up is that I didn't give a fuck where I was standing. If I had to stand alone, I was going to stand. And to be that fierce and to be that young, it didn't really sit that well with him. It took a long time for me to really understand it until finally I really understood. When we assert intuition, we are therefore like the starry night. We gaze at the world through 1,000 eyes. The wild nature carries the bundles for healing. She carries everything a woman needs to be and know. She carries the medicine of all things. She carries stories and dreams and words and songs and signs and symbols. She is both a vehicle and a destination. To adjoin the instinctual nature does not mean to come undone. Change everything from left to right, from black to white, to move the east to the west, to act crazy or out of control. It does not mean to lose one's primary socializations or to become less human. That's where a lot of us kind of get stuck. We stop on our journey of becoming more knowing because we're afraid that we're going to turn into a less human version of the self that we look at every morning. And that's, although it's natural and it's understanding, and I can offer an understanding for it, we cannot offer excuses to ourselves for continuing to hide ourselves away in hopes that we'll be accepted by a world that seeks to use our energy but will not thank us for it. It means quite the opposite. The wild nature has a vast integrity to it. It means to establish territory, to find one's pack, to be in one's body with certainty and pride, regardless of the body's gifts and or limitations. To speak and act in one's behalf, to be aware, alert, to draw on the innate feminine powers of intuition and sensing, to come into one's own cycles, to find what one belongs to rise with dignity, to retain as much consciousness as possible. The archetype of the wild woman and all that stands behind her is patroness to all painters, writers, sculptors, dancers, thinkers, prayer makers, seekers, and finders, for they are all busy with the work of invention. and that is the instinctive nature's main occupation. As in all art, she resides in the guts, not in the head. She can track and run and summon and repel. She can sense, camouflage, and love deeply. She is intuitive. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I did that. That was very odd. She is intuitive, typical, and normative. She is utterly essential to a woman's mental and soul health. So what compromises the wild woman? Before we start, what do y'all think compromises the wild woman? I want y'all to use your noodles. Because if you in this live and that means you got a big noodle up here, use it. Tell me what you think compromises the wild woman. And if you're struggling, think about what compromises you. What causes you to have to deviate from your path? What makes you have to pause? What makes you have to stop? What makes you personally have to deviate from your path in order to fit? Changing up the music, y'all. We're going to go with my Soothe the Soul playlist. It does have words in there, but it's honestly really soothing. I feel like everyone would enjoy it. It's on Spotify. We're going to start with... Okay, you know what? We're going to start with Hosier. I love that giant man. I'm very upset that I was not able to, or I won't be able to see him. I think he's coming to Houston in September of this year. I don't know, but I'm very upset I'm not going to be able to see him. I don't think, hold on, because I don't know if anyone responded. All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and keep going. From the viewpoint of an archaeological psychology as well as an ancient tradition, she is the female soul, yet she is more. She is the source of the feminine. She is all that is of instinct, of the worlds both seen and hidden. She is the basis. We each receive from her a glowing cell that contains all instincts and knowings needed for our lives. She is the life, death, life mother. She is the incubator. She is intuition. She is a farseer. She is a deep listener. She is a loyal heart. She encourages humans to remain multilingual, fluent in the language of dreams, of passion and poetry. She whispers from the night. She leaves behind the terrain of a woman's soul, a coarse hair and muddy footprints. These fill women with longing to find her, to free her, and to love her. She is ideas, feelings, urges, and memory. She has been lost and half forgotten for a long, long time. She is the source. She is the light, the night, the dark, and a daybreak. She is the smell of good mud and the back leg of the fox, the birds that tell us secrets that belong to her. She is a voice that says, follow me this way. She is the one who thunders after injustice. She is the one that turns like a great wheel. She is the maker of cycles. She is the one in the mucky root of all women. She is the thing that keeps us going when we think that we're done for. She is the incubator of raw little ideas and deals. She is the mind that thinks of us. We are the thoughts that she thinks. Where is she present? Where can you feel her? Where can you find her? She walks in the desert, in the woods, in the ocean. She walks in the city, in the barrios, and she wanders through castles. She lives amongst queens, among campesinas, in the boardroom, in the factory, in the prison, in the mountain of solitude. She lives in the ghetto, at the university, and in the streets. She leaves footprints for us to try on for size. She leaves footprints wherever there is a woman and wherever there is fertile soil. Where does she live? At the bottom of the well, in the headwaters, in the ether of time. She lives in the tear and in the ocean. She lives in the cambia of the trees, which pings as it grows. She is from the future and from the beginning of time. She lives in the past and she is summoned by us. She is in the present and she keeps a chair at our table. She stands behind us in line and she drives ahead of us on the road. Yep, this is Juju. He followed me home today, so he is going to be our guest. Juju has decided he's going to make biscuits and fall asleep. He is not much of a reading buddy, but he's a good cuddle buddy, so I guess that kind of makes up for it. Maybe. I feel like I deserve biscuits because I'm just holding them at this point. She lives in the green poking through the snow. She lives in the rustling stalks of dying autumn corn. She lives where the dead come to be kissed and the living send their prayers. She lives in the place where language is made. She lives on poetry and percussion and singing. She lives on quarter notes, on grace notes, and in a cantata, in a sestina, and in the blues. She is the moment just before inspiration bursts upon us. She lives in a faraway place that breaks through to our world. People may ask for evidence, for proof of her existence. They are essentially asking for proof of the psyche. Since we are the psyche, we are the evidence. Each and every one of us is the evidence of not only a wild woman's existence, but of her condition in the collective. We are the proof of this ineffable female Newman. Our existence parallels hers. Our experiences of her within and without are the proofs. Our thousands and millions of encounters with her intra physicality, through our night dreams, through our day thoughts, through our yearnings, and our inspirations. These are her verifications. The fact that we are bereft in her absence, that we long and yearn when we are separated from her, these are the manifestations that she has passed our way. My doctorate is in ethno-clinical psychology, which is the study of both clinical psychology and ethnology, the latter emphasizing on the study of the psychology of groups and tribes in particular. My postdoctoral diploma is in analytical psychology, which is what certifies me as a Jungian psychologist. My life experience as a Kandora, Mesamondo, poet, an artist informs my work with analysis equally. Sometimes I am asked to tell what I do in my consulting room to help women return to their wildish natures. I place substantial emphasis on clinical and developmental psychology, and I use the simplest and most accessible ingredient for healing: stories. We follow the patient's dream material, which contains many plots and stories. The analysis of physical sensations and body memories are also stories which can be read and rendered into consciousness. Oh, his little leg twitching. Additionally, I teach a form of powerful interactive trancing that is proximate to Jung's actual imagination. You know what's funny? We're reading this and Spirit 2.0 by Sampha came on, which I heavily suggest everyone get a chance to listen to that song, because literally the lyrics are him saying, if nothing else gets you, Spirit will get you. I think it's a beautiful song. The first time I heard it, I burst into tears. It was beautiful. We elicit the wildish self through specific questions and through examining tales, legends, and mythos. Most times we are able over time to find the guiding myth or fairy tale that contains all the instruction a woman needs for her current psychic development. These stories comprise a woman's soul drama. It is like a play with stage instructions, characterization, and props. The craft of making is an important part of the work I do. I seek to empower my clients by teaching them the age-old craft of the hands. Among them is the symbolic arts of the talisman making, las ofrendas, retablos, these being anything from simple ribbon sticks to elaborate sculptures. Art is important for the commemorates of seasons of the soul, or a special or tragic event in the soul's journey. Art is not just for oneself, not just a marker of one's own understanding. It is also a map for those who follow after us. As you might imagine, work with each person is customized in the extreme, for it is true that people are made one to a kind, but these factors remain constant in my work with people. And these are the fundaments of all humans' work before them today, my own work as well as yours. The craft of questions, the craft of stories, the craft of your hands. All these are making of something, and that something is soul. Anytime we feed soul, it guarantees an increase. I hope you will see that these are tangible ways to soften old scar tissue, balm old wounds, and envision anew, thereby restoring the old skills that make the soul visible to down to the earth ways. The tales I bring here are elucidated. The instinctual nature of women are in some cases original stories, and in other cases are distinct literary renderings that I have written based on the peculiar ones given into my keeping by my tias y tios, abuelas and abuelos, omas and opas, the ones of my family, those whose oral traditions have been unbroken as far back as we can remember. A few written documents of my own first-hand encounters, some from a long time passing, but all from the heart. They are presented in all faithful, detailed, and archetypical integrity. It is with the permission and blessing of these living generations of familial healer-tellers who understand the subtleties and the requirements of story as healing phenomenon that I carry these forward. Additionally, here are some of the questions I pose to my analysis, the others whom I offer counsel in order for them to remember themselves. I also detail for you some of the craft, the experimental and artful play that assists women in retaining the noumen of their work in conscious memory. All these help to bring about the coverage of the precious wild self. I feel like this is a beautiful intro, and that's not even the entire intro, by the way. There's still about 4 or 5 pages, but I do want to jump in to chapter 1. Oh, he's stretching. Beans. Sorry, I had to. I just had to. He has little beans out. I had to touch him. So chapter 1. So we are reading Women Who Run with the Wolves. I made an announcement last week. I only got a chance to make one video because I had so many videos and so many ideas that were coming to my mind. But we are getting back to doing our weekly readings where we will be getting through a book, an entire book, if not most of a book. But I wanted to start with Women Who Run with the Wolves because there were so many people that were talking about wanting the book. I had a lot of people wanting reviews of it. But honestly, I just opted to read it with y'all because I feel like that's even better. Because even if you don't respond, even if all you do is listen, even if all you do is take what I say to heart, hopefully this still drops a seed in you. A seed that inspires you to come back next week, or inspires you to be more vocal, or inspires you to be more frightful, or inspires you to walk with a heavier step. If nothing else, I want to inspire people to be more of themselves. Specifically, I want to inspire the divine feminine to be comfortable with taking up space again. And we do that by sharing education. I'm gonna give y'all a second. We're gonna take a quick breather because I need water and there we go. Hold on. And Juju's doing his own little thing. I'm trying not to wake Juju up because then they're gonna scream. Like if you missed the very beginning of our session, Juju was screeching at the top of their lungs because my husband had moved and they didn't like it. And here's the thing, no judgment to Juju, but rude, just screeching at the top of their lungs. Hold on, y'all, I gotta get some water. I'm giving y'all a quick intermission while we get some liquids, tea, water. Roll one up if you got it, you know. Cause listen, if y'all know nothing else, y'all know y'all cousin don't judge you if you smoke, okay? That's one thing for certain, 2 things for sure. Angel, your cousin Angel is not gonna judge you if you decide to light one up in the middle of this little session, baby. If you've had a reading with me, you know. Whoop, smoke them if you got them. Juju stole my ice. Get a little hydration in. That is very important. Excuse. No. It's not for you. You got your own cup. You leave my cup alone. You ain't slick. I don't care. Yeah, I know. Would you like a kiss? Yeah. Nah. You know what's crazy? Hey, baby, how you doing? Giving y'all a brief intermission before we start truly with chapter 1. We started with the introduction and most of the introduction of Women Who Run with the Wolves, because again, I still want to inspire y'all to get this book yourselves, and I want y'all to read it. We went from page 1 to about page 12 or 13, and now we're about to start on chapter 1, but we are going to take a brief intermission while Juju yells at y'all. And while I hydrate. All right, y'all. Juju, they can't see you, my love. You're a little too far back. Well, what you want me to do about that? Okay, here, so that they can see you. So that the people can see you. Here, so you can lay in mom's arms. Are we happy? I'm gonna cry. Okay. All right. Well, a little bit of a longer intermission because Juju wanted to give me a hug and almost made me cry. But you know, it's okay. Pimps cry. Players cry. It's cool. I love you so much. I like how you're gently clawing me. You're like, I don't want you to move. But god dang it. Cats are very peculiar. And I'm sad that I'm allergic because I'm not going to be able to keep him long. He followed me home. He was hungry. He got a bath. He got some water. And now he's just cuddled in my arms. So, back to chapter 1, page 23 of Women Who Run with the Wolves. La Loba, this is called the Howl, the resurrection of the wild woman. So this is La Loba, the wolf woman. I must reveal to you that I am not one of the divine who march into the desert and return gravid with wisdom. I've traveled many cook fires and spread angel bait around every sleeping place. But more often than getting of wisdom, I've gotten indelicate episodes of Giardia, E. coli, and ambient dysentery. Such is the fate of a middle-class mystic with delicate intestines. Whatever wisdom or notion I espied on my travels to odd places and unusual people, I learned to shelter. For sometimes, old Father Academy, or Kronos, still has an inclination to eat the children before they can become either curative or astonishing. Intellectualization, y'all words are hard. Over-intellectualization can obscure the patterns of the instinctual nature of a woman. So, to further our kinship relationship with the instinctual nature, it assists greatly if we understand stories as though we are inside them, rather than as though they are outside of us. We enter into a story through the door of inner hearing. The spoken story touches the auditory nerve, and it runs across the floor of the skull into the brainstem just below the pons. There, auditory impulses are relayed upward to consciousness, or else, it is said, to the soul, depending on the attitude of which one listens. Come on. Come on. You jump down. I don't know what to tell you. Come on now. Doing all that thing yelling for nothing. All that yelling and screaming. All that screaming and yelling. Get down. Take a nap. You were sleeping just fine. All that screaming and yelling because I won't get up. So, to further our kinship and relationship with the instinctual nature, it assists greatly if we understand stories as though we are inside them, rather as though they are outside of us. We enter into a story through the door of inner hearing. The spoken story touches the auditory nerve, which runs across the floor of the skull into the brainstem just below the pons. There, auditory impulses are relayed upward to our consciousness, or else, it is said, to the soul, depending on the attitude in which one listens. I wanted to repeat that because I thought that was genuinely beautiful, the ways that she said it. Ancient dissectionists spoke of the auditory nerve being divided into 3 or more pathways in the brain. They surmised that the ear was meant, therefore, to hear 3 different levels. One pathway was said to hear the mundane conversation of the world, the second pathway to apprehend learning and art, and the third pathway existed to the soul itself, might hear guidance and gain knowledge while we're here on earth. Listen to the wild soul hearing now, for that is the mission of this story. Bone by bone, hair by hair, a wild woman comes back. Through night dreams, through events half understood and half remembered, a wild woman comes back. She comes back through story. I began my own migration across the United States in the 1960s, looking for a settling place that was dense with trees, fragrant with water, and populated with creatures that I loved. Bears, fox, snake, eagle, wolf. The wolves were being systematically exterminated from the upper Great Lakes region. No matter where I went, the wolves were being hounded in one way or another. Although many spoke of them as menaces, I always felt safer when there were wolves in the woods. Out west and in the north of those times, you could camp and hear the mountains and the forest sing, sing, sing at night. But even there, the age of scope rifles, Jeep-mounted Klieg lights, and arsenic treats caused an age of silence to creep over the land. And soon, the Rockies were almost empty of wolves too. That is how I came to the Great Desert, which lies half in Mexico, half in the United States. And the further south I traveled, the more stories I heard about wolves. You see, it is told that there is a place in the desert where the spirit of a woman and the spirit of wolves meet across time. I felt I was on to something when the Texas borderlands I heard a story called the Loba girl, a woman who was a wolf who was a woman. Next, I found the ancient Aztec story, orphan twins being breastfed by a she-wolf till the children were old enough to stand on their own. And finally, from the old Spanish land grant farmers and Pueblo people of the Southwest, I heard of one-line reports about the bone people, the old ones who would bring the dead back to life. They were said to both restore humans and animals. Then, on one of my own ethnographic expeditions, I met a bone woman, and I've never been quite the same since. Allow me to present a first-hand account of our introduction. La Loba. There's an old woman who lives in a hidden place that everyone knows in their souls, but few have ever seen. As in the fairy tales of Eastern Europe, she seems to wait for lost or wandering people and seekers to come to her place. She is circumspect, often hairy, always fat, and especially wishes to evade most company. Sound a little bit like me. She is both a crower and a cackler, generally having more animal sounds than human ones. I might say that she lives among the rotten granite slopes in Tarahumara Indian Territory, or that she is buried outside of Phoenix near a well. Perhaps she will be seen traveling south to Monte Alban in a burnt-out car with the back window shot out, or maybe she will be spotted standing by the highway near El Paso, or riding shotgun with truckers to Morelia, Mexico, or walking to market above Oaxaca, and strangely formed burrows of firewood on her back. She calls herself by many names: La Juresa, Bone Woman; La Trapera, the Gatherer; La Loba, the Wolf Woman. The sole work of La Loba is the collecting of bones. She collects and preserves especially that which is in danger of being lost to the world. Her cave is filled with the bones of all manner of desert creature: the deer, the rattlesnake, the crow, but her specialty is wolves. She creeps and crawls and shifts through the montanas, the mountains, the arroyos, dry riverbeds, looking for wolf bones, and when she's assembled an entire skeleton, when the last bone is in place and the beautiful white sculpture of the creature is laid out before her, She sits by the fire and thinks about the song that she will sing. And when she is sure, she stands over the creatura, raises her arms over it, and sings out. That is when the rib bones and the leg bones of the wolf begin to flesh out, and the creature becomes furred. La Loba sings some more, and more of the creature comes into being. Its tail curls upwards as shaggy and strong, and La Loba sings more, and the wolf creature begins to breathe. And still La Loba sings so deeply that the floor of the desert shakes. And as she sings, the wolf opens his eyes, leaps up, and runs away down the canyon. Somewhere in its running, whether by the speed of its running or by the splashing of its way into the river, or by a ray of sunlight or moonlight hitting at just the right side, the wolf is suddenly transformed into a laughing woman who runs free to the horizon. So remember, if you wander in the desert and it's near sundown, and perhaps you are a little bit lost and certainly tired, that you are lucky. For La Loba might take a liking to you and show you something deep within the soul. We all begin as a bundle of bones lost somewhere in the desert, a dismantled skeleton that lies under the sand. It is our work to recover our parts. It is painstaking process, best done with the shadows, best done when the shadows are just right, for it takes much looking. La Loba indicates what we are looking for, the indestructible life force, our bones. The work of La Loba can be thought as representing un ciento milagro, a miracle story. It shows us what can go right for the soul. It is a resurrection story about the underworld connection to the wild woman. It promises that if we will sing the song, we can call up the psychic remains of the wild song and sing her into a vital shape again. La Loba sings over the bones that she has gathered. To sing means to use our soul voice. It means to say on the breath of the truth of one's power and on one's speed. To breathe soul over the things that is ailing or in need of restoration. This is done by descending into the deepest mood of great love and feeling, till one's desire for relationship with the wildest self overflows. Excuse me. Then to speak one's soul from that frame of mind. That is singing over the bones. We cannot make the mistake of attempting to elicit this great feeling of love from a lover. For this woman's labor of finding and singing the creation hymn is solitary work, a work carried out in the desert of the psyche. Let us consider La Loba herself in the symbolic lexicon of the psyche, the symbol of the old woman. It is one of the most widespread archetypal personifications of the world. Others are the great mother and father, the divine child, the trickster, the sorcerer, the sorceress, the maiden and the youth, the heroine warrior, and the fool or the fooless. Yet, a figure like La Loba can be considered vastly different in essence and effect, for she is symbolic of the feeder route to an entire instinctual system. In Southwest, the archetype of the old woman can also be apprehended as the old La que sabe, the one who knows. I first came to understand lo que sabe when I lived in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains of New Mexico, under the heart of Lobo Peak. An old witch from Ranchos told me that lo que sabe knew everything about a woman, that lo que sabe had created woman from a wrinkle in the sole of her foot. This is why women are knowing creatures. They are made in essence of the skin of the soul, which feels everything. The idea that the skin of the foot is sentient had us ringing of truth. For an acculturated Quiche tribeswoman once told me that she'd worn her first pair of shoes when she was 20 years old and was still not used to walking con los ojos vendados, with blindfolds on her feet. I want to pause here because I think this is really interesting, because growing up in Southern Louisiana, it was very common to walk without shoes. I mean, very common. I don't, in my home, wear shoes. When I would go on my hot girl walks in the middle of the woods, I would pick a patch where I would walk barefoot. And I always thought it was really interesting to know that it just felt so natural taking off my shoes after a long day as a girly, old pageant child an old pageant child that really loved heels. There was nothing more freeing than taking my feet out of them fucking shoes and touching some grass. There was just nothing more freeing. I'm 28 years old and there is nothing that is more pleasurable to me, honestly, than putting my feet in the grass and just letting myself experience what it's like to feel, to be at one, to be with that pulse in the earth. If y'all are new here and y'all just clicking in, just know I'm getting over a cold, so I'm gonna cough intermittently throughout this. The wild essence that inhabits nature has been called by many names and crisscrosses all nations down through the centuries. These are some of the old names for her. The Mother of Days is the Mother, Creator God of all beings and doings, including the sky and the earth. Mother Nyx has dominion over all things from the mud and the dark. Durga controls the skies and the winds and the thoughts of humans from which all reality spreads. I think her name is Kotalise. Kotalise gives birth to the infant universe, which is rascally and hard to control. But like a wolf woman, or like a wolf mother, she bites her child's ear to contain it. Hecate, the old seer who knows her people and has about her the smell of hummus and the bread and the breath of God. And there are many, many more. These are the images of what and who lives under the hill, far off in the desert, out in the deep. But by whatever name, the person or the force personified by La Loba records the personal past and ancient past, for she has survived generation after generation and is old beyond time. She is an archivist of feminine intention. She perseveres female tradition. Her whiskers sense the future. She has the far-seeing milky eye of the old crone. She lives backward and forward in time simultaneously, correcting for one side by dancing with the other. The old one, the one who knows, is within us. She thrives in the deepest of the soul psyche of women, the ancient and vital wild self. Her home is that place in time where the spirit of woman and the spirit of wolf meet, the place where the mind and instincts mingle, where a woman's deep life funds her mundane life. It is the point where the I and thou kiss, the place where in all spirit women run with the wolves. This old woman stands between the worlds of rationality and mythos. She is the knucklebone in which those two worlds turn. This land between the worlds is that inescapable place we all recognize once we experience it. But its nuances slip away and shape change if one tries to pin them down, except when we use poetry, music, dance, or story. There is a speculation that the immune system of the body is rooted in the mysterious psychic land and also the mystical, as well as the archetypal images and urges included in God hunger, our yearning for mysteries, and all that sacred instincts as well as those which are mundane. Some would say that the records of humankind, the root of light, the coil of dark are also there. It is not a void, but rather a place of mist beings where things are and also are not yet, where shadows have substance and substance is sheer. One thing about this land is certain: it is old, older than the ocean. It has no age, for it is ageless. The wild woman archetype funds this lair, emanating from the instinctual psyche. Although she can take on many guises in our dreams and creative experiences, she is not from the lair of the mother, the maiden, the Medal woman. She is not the inner child. She is not the queen, the Amazon, the lover, the seer. She is just what she is. Call her La Kasabe, the one who knows. Call her wild woman. Call her La Loba. Call her by her high names or by her low names. Call her by her newer names or her ancient ones. She reminds us of just what she remains just what she is. Wild woman as an archetype is an inimitable and ineffable force in which carries a bounty of ideas, images, and particularities of humankind. Archetype exists everywhere, and yet it is not seeable in the usual sense. What can be seen of it is the dark, or in the dark, cannot be necessarily seen by the light. We find lingering evidence of the archetype in the images and the symbols found in stories, found in literature, found in poetry, in painting, in religion. It would appear that it glows. Its voice, its fragrance are meant to cause us to be raised up from contemplating the shit on our tails to occasionally traveling to the company of the stars. At Loba's place, the physical body is, as poet Tony Moffat writes, a luminous animal, and the body's immune system seems, via anecdotal reports, to be strengthened or weakened by conscious thought. At Loba's place, the spirits manifest as personages of Los Mitologica. The mythical voice of the deep psyche speaks as a poet and an oracle. Things of psychic value once dead can be revived. Also, the basic material of all stories exist in the world ever. Begin with someone's experience here, in this inexplicable psychic land, and someone's attempt to relate to what occurred to them here. There are various names for this locus between the worlds. Jung called it variously the collective unconscious, the object psyche, and the psychoid unconscious, referring to more ineffable layer of the former. He thought of the latter as a place where the biological and the psychological worlds share headwaters, where biology and psychology might mingle with the influence of one another. Throughout human memory, this place, call it Nod, call it home of the mist being, the crack between the worlds, is the place where visitations, miracle, imaginations, inspirations, and healings of all nature occur. Though this site transmit great psychic wealth, it must be approached with preparation. For one may be tempted to joyously drown in the rapture of one's time there. Consensual reality may seem less exciting by comparison. In this sense, these deeper layers of psyche can become a rapture trap from which people return unsteady with wobbly ideas and airy presentments. Now let's pause here because that is a really good example of what happens when people end up in going into spiritual psychosis. People become so enthralled with what they find in the spirit realm that they become lost to the world outside of them, to this physical world, because despite how many people have been taught, despite what many of us have been told to believe, these worlds exist together. Hey Ray, hi baby. Let me make sure I say hi to the right person. I'm sorry. Yes, Sunspot. Hey Sunspot. But it's really important that we acknowledge these things because it's really easy to hop into spiritual psychosis. It's not unusual for a person. It's really easy to hop into spiritual psychosis. It's not unusual for a person to become so in love with the metaphysical world that they forget that we still live in this world. And despite us not liking this physical world, we have the power to change it. And it is important that we keep ourselves steady and even and functioning. Because without that, we won't be able to move forward. We won't be able to make an impact. We won't be able to do anything because we'll be so stuck in psychosis because we're so in love with the metaphysical that we forget this physical world needs us just as badly, if not more so. That is not how it is meant to be. How one is meant to return is wholly washed or dipped in a reviving and informing water, something that impresses upon our flesh the odor of the sacred. Each woman has potential access to Ria Abajo Rio, this river beneath the river. She arrives there, deep meditation, dancing, writing, painting, prayer making, singing, drumming, active imagination, or any activity that requires an intense altered consciousness. A woman arrives in this world between the worlds through yearning and by seeking something that she can just see out of the corner of her eye. She arrives there by deeply creative acts, through intentional solitude, and by practice of any of the arts. And even with these well-crafted practices, much of what occurs in this ineffable world remains forever mysterious to us, for it breaks physical laws and rational laws as we know it. The care with which this psychic state must be entered is recorded in small but powerful story of 4 rabbis who yearn to see the most sacred will of Ezekiel. I don't know if any of y'all who have come in have a background in the Christian faith or religion. I grew up between Catholicism. My grandfather was deeply Catholic and went to church with him. Also put me through catechism. And then I went to Catholic school, and then I also went to public schools in predominantly Baptist and deep Southern Methodist Kojic background. So my understanding of the Bible is quite deep, but this particular story of the 4 rabbi I think is really good, and it's going to kind of offer a little bit of an understanding as to why it's so important to keep yourself balanced on your spiritual journey, because it's real easy to get off kilter. It's easy to jump off the deep end when it comes to the spiritual world, because it's so tasty, it's so good, it's so fulfilling. But again, we have to remember that we have to be just as conscious in this world as we are in the metaphysical. Because if we are not conscious within both worlds, we have the ability to lose ourselves. And sometimes you're not always able to get yourself back in time, if at all. This is why balance is so important, and why it is something that I personally continue to push on my profile and on my servers and in everything that I do, because I want y'all to understand that just as powerful as you are, just as spiritual as you are also still flesh and blood. You are also still clay and sand and breath and blood and bone. And you have to honor that version of you, just as you honor your highest self. You must also honor your physical. We're going to go with the story of the 4 rabbi. One night, 4 rabbinim were visited by an angel who awakened them and carried them to the 7th vault of the 7th heaven. There they beheld the sacred will of Ezekiel. Somewhere in the descent from paradise to earth, one rabbi, having seen such splendor, lost his mind and wandered, frothing at the mouth and foaming until the end of his days. The 2nd rabbi was extremely cynical. Oh, I just dreamed Ezekiel's will. That was all. Nothing really happened. The 3rd rabbi carried on and on about what he had seen, for he was totally obsessed. He lectured and would not stop on how it was all structured and what it all meant. And in this way, he went astray and betrayed his very faith. The 4th rabbi, who was a poet, took a paper in hand and a reed and sat near the window, writing song after song, praising the evening dove, his daughter in her cradle, and all the stars in the sky. And he lived his life better than before. Think of the imagery there. Become so enraptured that you become mad. Become so enraptured that you become hell-bent. Become so cynical because you're afraid that you never acknowledge the glory. Or you balance. You learn to be grateful for the experience, ecstatic about the fact that you can share this world and this knowing with those behind you, in this case, the rabbi's daughter. Allow yourself to be conscious in the unconscious. That's very important on this journey. For if you are not, you are, and you do run the risk of losing everything, including yourself. Who saw what the 7th vault of the 7th heaven? We do not know. But we do know that contact with the world wherein the essences reside causes us to know something beyond the usual hearing of humans and fills us with a feeling of expansion, of grandeur. When we touch the authentic fundament of the one who knows, it causes us to react and act from our deepest integral nature. The story recommends that the optimal attitude for experiencing the deep unconscious is one of neither too much fascination nor too little, one of not too much awe, but neither too much cynicism. Bravery, yes, but not recklessness. Jung cautions in his magnificent essay, The Transcendent Function, which, by the way, I would suggest reading that. It's a little lengthy, a little wordy, but it was very much so worth it. Some persons, in their pursuit of self, will overemphasize the God or self-experience. Some will undervalue it, some will overvalue it, and some who are not ready for it will simply be injured by it. Excuse me, y'all. So the essay is The Transcendent Function. This was written by Jung. I think I'll try and find a link to it, and I will post it with this in the Discord server, because I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit of a lengthy essay, but it does talk about the importance of balance when it comes to the conscious and the unconscious. The moral obligation he speaks of means to live what we perceive, be it found in the psychic Elysian fields, the Isles of the Dead, the bone deserts of the psyche, the face of the mountain, the rock of the sea, the lush underworld, any place where Lokasabe breathes upon us, changing us. Our work is to show that we have been breathed upon. To show it, give it out, sing it out, live out the top side of the world, what we have received through our sudden knowings, from our body, from our dreams, and journeys of all sorts. Loba parallels world myth in which the dead are brought back to life. In Egyptian mythos, Isis accomplishes this service for her dead brother Osiris, who is dismembered by their evil brother Set. Every night, Isis works from dusk to dawn, each night to piece her brother back together again before morning, else the sun will not rise. The Christ raised Lazarus, who had been dead so long that he had began to stink. Demeter calls forth her pale daughter Persephone from the land of the dead once a year, and the Loba sings over your bones. This is our meditation practice as women, calling back the dead and the dismembered aspects of ourselves, calling back the dead and dismembered aspects of life itself. The one who recreates that which has died is always a double-sided archetype. The creation mother is also the death mother, and vice versa. Because of this dual nature or double tasking, the great work before us is to learn to understand what around and about us and what within us must live, as well as what within us must die. Our work is to apprehend the timing of both, to allow what must die to die, and what must and what must live to live. For women, El Rio Adajo Rijo, the river beneath the river world, the bone woman home place contains direct knowing about seedlings, rootstock, the seed corn of the world. In Mexico, women are said to carry la luz de vida, the light of life. This light is located not in a woman's heart, not behind her eyes, but in los ovarios, in her ovaries, where all the seed stock is laid down before she is even born. For men, exploring the deeper ideas of fertility and nature of the seed, this cross-gender image is the furry bag, los cojones, the scroll. This is knowing to be gained in being close to the wild woman. When La Loba sings, she sings from the knowing of los ovarios, a knowing from deep within the body, deep within the mind, deep within the soul. The symbols of seed and bone are very similar. If one has the rootstock, the basis, the original part, if one has the seed corn, any havoc can be repaired, devastations can be resown, fields can be rested, hard seed can be soaked to soften, to help it break open and thrive. To have the seed means to have the key of life. To be with the cycles of seed means to dance with life. Love that. I'm sorry, I get emotional sometimes when reading this. I'm okay. To have the means to have the key to life To be with the cycles of the seed means to dance with life, to dance with death, dance into life again. This embodies the life and death mother in her most ancient and principled form. Because she turns into these constant cycles, I call her the life, death, life mother. If something is lost, it is she who we must appeal, speak with, and listen to. Her psychic advice is sometimes harsh or difficult to put into practice, but it is always transformative and restorative. So when something is lost, we must go to the old woman who always lives in the out-of-the-way pelvis. She lives out there, half in and half out of the creative fire. This is the perfect place for a woman to live. Right next to the fertile huevos, their eggs, their female seeds. The tiniest ideas and the largest ones are waiting for our minds and our actions to make them manifest. Imagine the old woman as the quintessential 2 million-year-old woman. She is the original wild woman who lives beneath and yet on the top side of the earth. She lives in and through us, and we are surrounded by her. The deserts, the woodlands, and the earth under our houses are 2 million years old, and then some. I'm always taken by how deeply women like to dig into the earth. They plant the bulbs for spring. They poke blackened fingers into mucky soil, transporting sharp-smelling tomato plants. I think they are digging down to the 2 million-year-old woman. They are looking for her toes and her paws, and they want for her to present to themselves, for with her they feel a peace and at peace. Without her, they feel restless. Many women I've worked with over the years began their first session with some variation of, well, I don't feel bad, but I don't feel good either. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I've had a lot of clients tell me that myself. I think that condition is not a great mystery. We know it comes from not enough muck. The cure, the Loba. Find the 2 million-year-old woman. She is the caretaker of the dead and dying of woman things. She is the road between the living and the dead. She sings the creation hymns over your bones. The old woman, the wild woman, la voz mitologica. She is the mythical voice who knows the past and our ancient history and keeps it recorded for us in stories. Sometimes we dream her as a disembodied but beautiful voice. As the hag maiden, she shows us what it means to be not withered, but wizened. Babies are born wizened with instinct. They know in their bones what is right and what to do about it. It is innate. If a woman holds on to this gift of being old while she is young and young while she is old, she will always know what comes next. And if she has lost it, she can yet reclaim it with some purposeful psychic work. La Loba, the old one in the desert, is a collector of bones. In archetypal symbology, bones represent the indestructible force. They do not lead themselves easy to reduction. They are by far their strongest structure, hard to burn and nearly impossible to pulverize. In myth and story, they represent the indestructible soul spirit. We know the soul spirit can be injured, even maimed, but it is very nearly impossible to kill. You can dent the soul and bend it. You can hurt it or scar it. You can leave the marks of illness upon it and the scorch marks of fear, but it does not die, for it is protected by La Loba in the underworld. She is both the finder and the incubator of the bones. Bones are heavy enough to hurt with, sharp enough to cut through flesh, and when old and if strung, tinkle like glass. The bones of the living are alive and creatural themselves. They constantly renew themselves. A living bone has a curiously soft skin to it. It appears to have certain powers to regenerate itself. Even as a dry bone, it becomes home for small living creatures. The wolf bones in this story represent the indestructible aspect of the wild self, the instinctual nature, the creatura dedicated to freedom and the unspoiled, that which will never accept the rigors and the requirements of dead or overly civilizing nature. The metaphors in the story typify the entire process for bringing a woman to her full instinctual wild senses. Within us is the old one who collects bones. Within us, there are the soul bones of this wild self. Within us is the potential to be fleshed out again as the creature we once were. I like that. Within us are the potential to be fleshed out again as the creature we once were. Within us are the bones to change ourselves and our world. Within us is the breath in our truths and our longings. Together they are the song, the creation hymn that we have been yearning to sing. This does not mean that we should walk about with our hair hanging in our eyes or with black ringed claws for fingernails. Yes, we remain human. But also within the human woman is the animal instinctual self. This is not some romantic cartoon character. She has real teeth, a true snarl, huge generosity, unquelled hearing, sharp claws, and generous but furry breast. The self must have freedom to move, to speak, to be angry, and to create. This self is durable, resilient, and possess high intuition. It is a self which is knowledgeable in the spiritual dealings of death and birth. Today, the old one inside you is collecting bones. What is she remaking? What is the soul self, the builder of the soul home? Ella, Lohas Alemano, she makes and remakes the soul by hand. What is she making for you? Let's see. I'll give y'all these final 2 pages because then it goes into chapter 2, and I told you I was only going to give y'all chapter 1. Okay? Even in the best of the world, the soul needs refurbishing from time to time. Just like the adobes here in the Southwest, a little peels, a little falls down, a little washes away. There is always an old round woman with a bedroom slipper, feet who is paddling mud slurry on the adobe walls. She mixes straw and water and earth and pats it back on the walls, making them fine again. Without her, the house will lose its shape. Without her, it will wash down into a lump after a hard rain. She is the keeper of the soul. Without her, we lose our shape. Without an open supply line to her, humans are said to be soulless or damned souls. She gives shape to the soul house and makes more houses by hand. She is the one in the old apron. She is the one whose dress is longer in the front than it is in the back. She is the one who pat-a-pats. She is the soul maker, the wolf raiser, and the keeper of all things wild. So I say to you with affection, be you a black wolf, a northern gray, a southern red, or an Arctic white, you are the quintessential instinctual Kritara. Although some might really prefer that you behave yourself and not climb all over the furniture, enjoy, or all over people and welcome, do it anyway. Some will draw back from you in fear or disgust. Your lover, however, will cherish this aspect of you, if he or she be the right lover for you. Some people will not like it if you take a sniff at everything to see what it is. And for heaven's sake, no lying on your back with your feet up in the air. Bad girl, bad wolf, bad dog, right? Wrong. Go ahead and enjoy yourself. People do meditation to find psychic alignment. That's why people do psychotherapy and analysis. That's why people analyze their dreams and make art. This is why some contemplate tarot cards, cast I Ching, dance, drum, make theater, pry out the poem, or fire up their prayers. That's why they do all the things that they do. It is the work of gathering all of the bones together. Then we must sit at the fire and talk about which song we will use to sing over the bones, which creation hymn, which recreation hymn, and the truth that we will make the song. These are some good questions to ask till one decides on the song, one's true song. What happened to my soul voice? What are the buried bones of my life? In what condition is my relationship to my instinctual self? When was the last time I ran free? How do I make life come alive again? Where is La Loba gone to? The old woman sings over the bones, and as she sings, the bones flesh out. We too become as we pour soul over the bones we have found. As we pour yearning and our heartbreaks over the bones of what we used to be when we were young, of what we used to know in centuries past, and over the quickening that we sense in the future. We stand on all fours, four square, as we pour soul, as we are revived. We are no longer a thin solution, a dissolving, frail thing. No, we are becoming in this stage of transformation. Like the dry bones, we so often start out in the desert. We feel disenfranchised, alienated, not connected, or even a cactus clump. The ancients called the desert the place of divine revelation, but for women, there is much more to it than that. A desert is a place where life is very condensed. The roots of living things hold on to that last tear of water, and the flower hoards its moisture by only appearing in the early morning and the late afternoon. Life in the desert is small but brilliant, and most of what occurs goes on underground. This is like the lives of many women. The desert is not lush like a forest or a jungle. It is very intense and mysterious in its life forms. Many of us have lived desert lives, very small on the surface and enormous under the ground. La Loba shows us what precious things can come from that sort of psychic distribution. A woman's psyche may have found its way to the desert out of resonance, or because of past cruelties, or because she was not allowed a larger life above ground. So often, a woman feels then that she lives in an empty place where there may be just one cactus with one brilliant red flower on it, and then in every direction, 500 miles of nothing. But for the woman who will go 501 miles, there is something for you. A small, brave house and an old one, and she's been waiting there for you. Some women don't want to be in the psychic desert. They hate the frailty, the spareness of it. They keep trying to crank a rusty jalopy and bump their way down the road to a fantasized shining city of the psyche. But they are disappointed, for the lush and the wild do not belong here. It is in the spirit world, that world between worlds, Rio abajo Rio, the river beneath the river. Don't be a fool. Go back and stand under that one red flower and walk straight ahead for that last hard mile. Go up and knock on that weathered door, climb up to the cave, crawl through the window of a dream, sift the desert to see what you find. It is the only work we have to do. You wish psychoanalytic advice? Go and gather your bones. I like this. I like that we finished chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the intruder, the beginning initiation. This is the story of Bluebeard, which I thought was absolutely beautiful because I remember my grandmother telling me a story that was similar to this, but she called him Blackbeard, and I always thought she meant the pirate. And it wasn't until I read this book that I realized it was just nothing more than a rendition of Bluebeard. Excuse me. Which was absolutely beautiful. But we're going to stop reading here. Next week, we're going to do chapter 2. We might do chapter 2 and 3 because at this point, we've gotten through. Hi, Juju. At this point, we've gotten through chapter 1 as well as the introduction. Now, I will say these chapters are a little thick, okay? Because I'm trying to show you where chapter 2 ends. Chapter 2 is a little dense. So I think the next time we'll probably get through chapter 2 and go through our notes. This week, because I was requested to let y'all live, which I will begrudgingly do for right now, I am not going to give y'all a task to do yet. I'm going to let y'all sit and think about this. If y'all don't have y'all book, I'm going to give y'all the time to get it. Our next reading session is not until next week, same time, 8 p.m. We're going to do chapter 2 of Women Who Run with the Wolves. Juju might still be here if I have not found him a home yet. He might be our little mascot. If not, you'll get a chance to meet Cleo. She's also a wonderful mascot, or more rambunctious dog, but if nothing else, wonderful. But we are... Sorry, he's purring. I'm soaking it in. But I'm going to let y'all live. I'm going to let y'all experience. But before I let y'all go, how are we feeling about chapter 1 and that introduction? Are we feeling lost? Are we thinking of anything? Did we have any realizations? Or did everybody just kind of enjoy hearing me talk? Either way, I don't mind. But how did chapter 1 and that introduction leave you feeling? I will say this book is really beautiful, and I opted to start out reading this because it is so wordy. It does have very clear indications where, like, if you're not a Spanish-speaking individual, or if you're not like me and you grew up in Spanish-speaking areas, you might not always be able to read the words. And again, this is a woman that holds a doctorate. So also her communication is a little bit more elevated. I'll say more elevated, I guess is the best way to say it. Because she uses a lot of 4-syllable words. And I know that not everyone is confident with kind of reading. And it's easy for us as humans to get discouraged when we read something and we're like, oh, I don't know what that word is. And then we feel like we don't know much. I never want people to feel that way, which is why I opted to start doing our book sessions in the first place. It's so that people knew that they weren't alone. And it gave everyone a place to be able to sit and talk and figure out things and learn things and experience. And I just thought it was beautiful for everyone to be able to experience. And that's why I'm glad to be bringing it back. The cat distribution system is very funny. I'm going to put you down, Juju. Oh, don't be spoiled now. I'm going to leave y'all. I really like you. Are more than welcome, baby. Oh, hey, Lola. How you doing? See, you said you don't talk much. I'm glad to get you here. I'm going to give y'all one card pull to end the night. Juju, would you like to pull a card? Juju would not like to pull a card. Juju wants his belly rubbed. I only had this cat for maybe 6 hours and they're already demanding a lot of things of me. Quite crazy. You want one? You are of no help, you know that? Yep, I love you too. I love you too. You know, shuffling with you on the table is a little bit more difficult than I thought it was gonna be. He did. It's very interesting because he responds like a human. So to close out this book session, get your nose out my candle. So to close out this reading, or to close out this reading session for Women Who Run with the Wolves, our associated card is the Ace of Wands. I think this is a beautiful card because it is referenced and oftentimes connected with creativity. It's connected with growth. And I think it's really interesting that we started out this chapter 1 and the introduction, talking about creativity, talking about the divine self, talking about gathering up the bones. And we're ending it on creativity, that aspect of gathering the bones, that aspect of singing life into yourself, of singing life into all versions of yourself. We're going to go ahead and close out this particular book club for tonight. I'm going to take care of Juju. I'm going to make some tea. I'm going to check on my husband and the dogs. But I am looking forward to seeing y'all next week to start on chapter 2, where we're going to talk about Bluebeard. Y'all have a good night. Say good night to Juju. Say good night, Juju. Say good night, Juju. Let them see your eyes. They're so pretty. Say good night, y'all. I'll see y'all next week.